I'm Aaron Weintraub, and this is Inside Kurdistan. In 1983, approximately 8,000 men from the Barzani tribe were rounded up and executed in the desert in southern Iraq. This massacre was a set of larger genocidal campaigns led by Saddam Hussein and the Ba'ath Party, and it remains, unfortunately, a cornerstone of Kurdish identity to this day. And the bodies of these men are still being recovered, and there may be no individual more qualified to speak on their recovery than Dr. Mohamed Ihsan. Beginning in the early 90s, Dr. Ihsan began looking for the bodies of the Barzan men at great personal risk, and he went on to present evidence of genocide during the trial of Saddam Hussein in 2005. Along with his work on recovering these men, he's gone on to work as a Minister of Extra-Regional Affairs and working with the federal Iraqi government after the war. He was the Minister of Human Rights for the KRG as well, and he's become a prominent figure in academia concerning diplomacy and human rights. He's taught at both the University of Peace in Costa Rica and as a visiting senior research fellow at King's College of London. Also, in the 90s, he served as a legal advisor in post-apartheid South Africa, and we talk about that as well. But all in all, he's one of the most important people to come out of this field, the field of human rights studies in the last 30 years. And I really could go on and on listing his accomplishments, but I'm just going to let him do the talking from here on out. So with all that said, here's our conversation. Dr. Ihsan, thanks so much for joining me today.
Thank you so much.
I think it's best for us, before we get into the own role that you play with the recovery of the bodies from the Anfal, to talk about the Barzan Anfal and its history in general. Could you give me sort of a layout of the early years of Saddam's genocide against the Kurds in Barzan specifically?
I think Barzani's genocide, it was the first genocide in Iraq in that scale. Because and it was another stage in Iraq how Saddam was dealing with Kurds. Before, he was face-to-face contact or face-to-face war or assassination of certain personnel in Kurdish leadership or in Kurdish society. But with Barzani, it moved from the large-scale killing, from individual killing to mass graves, for example. It happens in 1983 when Saddam Hussein's during Iraq-Iran war. It gets to the level that he was in Hajj Amran. They failed with Iran. He wanted to take revenge against Barzani, and at the same time he had 4 concentrated camps in Kurdistan, in Diana, in Khoshtapa, and Harir, and in Hawler. They captured all the male. This is very unique genocide in the world. He captured 8,000 Barzanis, male. He took them all the way from here to Baghdad, from Baghdad to Samawa, Governorate to Muthanna, to Negra Salman area, and after that, it vanished. We were all searching for these bodies. What happened to this issue? Through documents, you find out it is the crimes occurred, the killings been done, and because Saddam himself, he broadcast after their capture that these people, they've been sent to jail. And my role was a way to find the road to hell. How this road was set, what Saddam means by his hell, and where is Saddam's hell. And through my work, we were searching through documents, talking to people, talking to Iraqi ex-officers, Iraqi intelligence. Until 2003, I went to desert all the time, and we find out some signs of graves. We started to excavate, to work in the grave, mass graves, until we managed to bring the first 593 bodies back to Kurdistan. I think it was the first time in Kurdish history that the Kurds can manage to bring their bodies back from mass graves.
And you mentioned that it was men only who were killed during this Anfal. Could you explain the significance of that?
Look, I have the paper investigating why they did that one, really. For a male-dominated society, man means a lot. Really, many in Kurdistan. Kurdistan is not West, it's not Paris, it's not DC, it's not Virginia, it's not London. Men's here means a lot for the family. He's the source of income. He's the source of work. He's the source of controlling the family. He's the source of everything in the family. That's once they have social reason for it in order to destroy the structure of this tribe. Second, to show to the other tribes that this is your leadership, this is the strongest tribes you have, this is your image, I'm going to destroy it, then no one can dare to stand against us. Tribal side of it. Political side, reason it was Barzani, they were always leading the leadership of Kurdish national movements, all from the early beginning of 20th century until today. They were always leading the Kurdish nationalist Kurdish revolutions against Ottoman, against Iraqis, against British occupation. Even until today, they are leading the countries how to protect the image and the security of Kurds and Kurdistan. This is another reason. And financially, they want to let these tribes down, to let their women or their females to go down to the streets, because before in our Kurdish society it was too hard for a female to work. And during 80s, it was one of the plans to some sort of humiliation. This is why I think we should be very proud of Barzani's females who managed to grow up their sons and their kids or their daughters to manage the society and to live and to struggle against all these challenges, social challenge, economic challenge, political challenges, all these things, and they survive until 1991 to rebuild the society again. I think that was all these reasons or factors behind that genocide.
And you begin actually collecting documents in 1991. Could you take me through you collecting documents in the early 90s and then later on during the war in Iraq, coming back and continuing to collect more documents after the fall of Saddam?
We had two stages of collecting document in our history. After 1991, when people started to do uprising against the regime, we managed to go to everywhere, sometime in the wrong way, sometime in the right way. In the wrong way, we destroyed a lot of public offices. This is normal in Middle East, really, and mainly in Iraq. Then we started to go to Iraqi intelligence offices to collect documents. Well, documents we collected were just information about people writing against each others. We managed to know some part of the structure of the regime and mentality of the regime, how they are working against us and how they are managing the country at that time. In 2003, I had some backgrounds, and before I was working against the regime as well. 9th of April, I imagine, 9th of April 2004, the regime, it was the fall of Baghdad. 11th of April, I was in Baghdad. 2 days. I remember I went to my aunt's house in Baghdad. They didn't open the door for me. They were scared because they know I'm against the regime, and they're scared to find out it might be I'm going to create a problem because the regime is still in power. And I've told them, don't worry, Saddam Hussein's gun, Baghdad's been fallen down. We started to collect tons and tons of documents. I managed to collect tons and tons and tons of documents, bringing them to Green Zone at that time, and searching for where we can find something linked to Kurdistan. One of my friends, he advised me, he told me that, Mohammed, I know what you are looking for. And he was working in Baghdad at that time. In a state of working from 1 to 2000, no. Go and started to search from the end. I told him how I can do that. He told me, go to the Ministry of Finance and their archives. You are going to find out the names of all the people who have been executed or hanged or empanelized through this office. I told him why. He said that by Iraqi law, anyone who's been hanged or killed, they confiscated all his lands and property. They are sending letters to the Ministry of Finance. Go and collect there. I bought 2 big photocopy machines, and I went to the Ministry of Finance. I told them, okay, copy everything for me. I'm going to pay you monies. Work extra for me here. Or I was threatening them at some stage. If you're not going to do that, I can be totally Not going to protect, and I'm going to kill you, by the way, really, because this is our property. Never touch it. I managed to collect tons of documents. And from that document, we started to classify something about the Hawk, something about Erbil, something about Slemania, something about Barzani, something about Anfal, something about intelligence, something about people who are working for them outside Iraq, really. But my targets in documents, I have to make it clear for history, is not to take revenge. My target was not revenge, really. My target, it was finding the truth. And because at that stage we were thinking to make an end of the story. Let us start new Iraq. Let us start new society. Let us start from zero again. We cannot forget, but we are ready to forgive.
Moving from that idea of bringing justice, but not in a sense of revenge, but in a sense of closure, can you tell me the role that you played in the trial against Saddam after you collected these documents?
Really, I was the only international genocide expert, and the only, I think, the main forensic investigator at the court. And I find out it is, when I was listening to the perpetrators, it was too hard to imagine that your country is being rolled more than 30 years by this bunch of killers, really. And they were not ready to forgive at all. Mm-hmm. And they were proud of all what they've done against their own people, many Kurds. I remember one interview sitting down face-to-face with Saddam Hussein and Ali Hassan Majid regarding Barzanis. They've said that if history repeats itself again, we are going to do the same.
Before we started this interview, we were discussing the Nuremberg trials and the phenomenon of officials in the Nazi Party expressing remorse or explaining that they were just following orders. And you brought up that the Baathists didn't have that same reaction, and I'm curious why you think that was.
No, there was sense of pride for two reasons. I think Baathists at the party, they build their characters. Mm-hmm. They are not. They are believers, unfortunately. They are believers of what they were doing. And the other reason was Saddam Hussein's present at was present at the court. Imagine in Nuremberg, if Hitler was inside the hole, totally no one can blaming each other for what they have done. And the cultural is Western culture and Eastern culture is different also. In East, mainly in this part of the world, when they felt and they do that, they were thinking that, okay, it's a great chance for us we are loser. We have gone, nothing left. Let us create something for our history. And today, by the way, some people are proud of what they have done until today, unfortunately, because after 2003, the new Iraqi government, they never managed to do something better than what has been done during Saddam Hussein's time. This is also another bad side effect. No, but they were proud of they were done, and they were not ready to at least to for any sort of pardon or to be sorry for what they have done.
Is it difficult for you personally to reconcile with someone like that?
Really, it's too hard. Seriously, it is. My work is affect me psychologically. Believe me, because it's not easy to find bodies, and for no reason, not one single incident or not single case, thousands and thousands of cases for nothing. These people's being killed, their only crime of the Kurds. It affects you sometimes. It affects you to see that why we're so cheap. Our life was so cheap at that time. What we have done. The only for one reason that you are Kurds? Is your nationality a crime for you? But then after that I started to investigate a lot and to do a lot of research about Rwanda, Armenia, Holocaust, Colombia, South Africa, to find out if there is something similar. I find out it's in any society has been classified by religions or by uh, tribes or by nationalities. If you don't have a real democratic regime, it's easy to end up in a genocide case. But in Iraq, and mainly with Barzani case, is totally unique. You cannot find any other case like Barzani case in all histories of genocide all over the world. This is the first case of genocide for 8,000 only male to be captured and killed, and no one aware of their case until 23 years later. 23 years later. Because the government at that time, or the regime at that time, they had a clear policy of denial. Clear policy. They have documents. They were telling no one aware of this except the state of the country. Don't talk about this topic at all. And no one were aware of it where that until 2003, 2004, which means 23 years later. This is a unique case, seriously, of genocide and the history of genocide all over the world.
I want to talk about your actual excavation of the bodies because during 2003 onwards, there's a presence of Al-Qaeda. And so the excavation, the actual recovery of these bodies is not in and of itself a safe process at all. And so I was wondering if you could walk me through sort of the risks that you took.
It was too risky, really. It was really risky. Sometimes we were working undercover. I was acting as a journalist, searching for truth, not as a guy with. And my message always for the people that I'm not coming. I'm not a police coming to capture people here in the desert or in the south. I'm coming to find the truth, and searching for my body, nothing else. It was too risky. And don't forget, in 1993, 2003, 2005, Qaeda was with Ba'athist, and we were searching for the crime of Ba'athist. It was too risky. One of my bodyguards has been killed, and after we finished our investigation, the governorate of Samawa, the area which we're working, has been killed by Qaeda as well. Mohamed Ihsan, poor guy, he was very helpful for us. And it was too risky, really, but we were following some clever, intelligent move. And I had some military background as well, really, because I worked in 1991 as a British Royal Marine during Safe Haven operation as a British Royal Marine with 40 Commando Brigade. At least we had some sort of intelligence, security, some military background to protect ourselves. And my procedure in that, always keep low profile. When you have big convoy, you are making yourself a big target, identical target for your enemy. We were careful in that, and thanks God, we managed to succeed.
Can you speak about when you did finally recover these bodies? What kind of closure it brought to the people in the Barzan area?
It was very helpful for Barzan area because really this genocide what they left behind it a lot of social, economical, family, social relations, movement, a lot behind it. People were waiting for so long. I think when we get the bodies back, there's some sort of relaxation. We make an end for a very bad and sad history or story. People, they, for example, imagine females waiting for 23 years for her husband to be back. Believe me, I remember one very important incident for me. I met a lady in Barzan after we returned the body back. She told me that, Mohammed, I've been for 23 years, every day and every night, every lunch, I'm waiting for my husband to be back. And even at night, I'm waiting for him to be on my bed. Okay? Now, despite of everything, thanks to God, at least you brought a bone for me to feel that my husband has been passed away and that I can sleep without waiting. Okay? It might be I can find him in my dream, but not waiting that he's going to knock the door and he's going to enter my room at any minute. Such sort of feeling for them, it was good, I think, despite of that. But sometimes you bring bad news and bad answer is much better waiting for no answers.
I actually want to talk now about your own role as Minister of Extra-Regional Affairs at that time, and your own background because you worked as a legal assistant in South Africa, actually. And so coming back to the theme of reconciliation and closure, how were you able to navigate the politics of sectarian Iraq after the fall of Saddam?
Really, I was not expecting the situation is going to be so tough and so hard, because I've seen a lot of bad and hard areas in all over the world. I worked in South Africa during the hardest time, but there was more role of leadership. Here in Iraq, it was less. And I find out Iraq is with the most fragmented society or the country in the area. Really, it's just a unique case. Unfortunately, you can say that Iraq without Iraqis. You have Kurds, you have Arabs, you have Turkmens, you have Chaldeans, you have Assyrians, you have Sunnis, you have Shias. You have a lot of much more sectarian roles here. It was not easy. When we were talking about reconciliation in Iraq and in Mali and Kirkuk, it was too hard. For many reasons. Cultural-wise, it is. We have very poor culture of reconciliation in Islamic world. This is fact. In Islamic world, they talk about reconciliation a lot, but it's not true. In Islamic way, when you talk about reconciliation, you have to live the way I want you to live. With Christians, with Jews, with anyone else. This is fact. They don't acknowledge it. The other things, the role of pride that we have to take revenge. Third, the love of blood also is another issue here. People there, I find out in South Africa, it's very easy. A killer can enter the house and tell him, forgive me, and they can cry for 10 minutes, then they shake hands and they invite it for lunch, and next day they can live together. Third, and fourth, which is very fact, is also the weather, it affects the revenge here. Seriously, it's a hot weather. I find out it's affecting the love of blood and revenge in this part of the world. It's very hard. This is why we are the Kurds. It is another unique case. The victim can ask for reconciliation before the perpetrators. In South Africa, the perpetrators ask for reconciliation. Please let us start it. Then Mandela follow it. In Kurdistan, Masoud Barzani was the first one. In 1991, he said that he came out with the idea of general pardon, general forgiveness for all, general amnesty, and then he's asked for reconciliation in the society. Also, this topic, I think, for the researcher and for the Western people, they should know about it. This is, I think, reconciliation started from Kurdistan before South Africa.
Can we speak a little bit about Kirkuk, which you mentioned briefly, because tensions have now risen since 2017 between federal Iraq and KRI. And I want to ask you what you think the future of these sectarian divides will do to that city and in general in Iraq.
Look, Kirkuk is mini Iraq, really. They have Kurds, Arab, Turkmens, Assyrian, Armenian, they have oil. These people, they were living together for a while. This area is really Kurdistani area, but part of Iraq. Saddam Hussein, after 1970, they had some procedures to change the demography of the area, and he succeeded on that. And you have data and documents, a lot of that. Through the constitution, we agreed that this area should be normalized. The side effect of Saddam Hussein's policies or decrees should be fixed, normalized. Then, we can come out with the idea of census. Who are the original people of Kirkuk, not the outcomer. New Kurdish outcomer, they are not eligible to take parole of the referendum. And even new Arabs comer, Arabs who are not originally from there, or Turkmens, they don't have role to do it. And then we can go for referendum. This area is part of KRG, and KRG part of Iraq. Oh, this area, there's going to be just part of Iraq, not under control of. And at the same time, we came out with the idea of power sharing. In area, which is in a city, which they have 10% Kurds and 5% Arabs, for at least 20 years, the same power sharing should apply to the area which have 10% Arab and 90% Kurds, or Turkmens like that one. They delay it because they don't believe on fixing the problem. And after 2017, it becomes more complicated, really. And today, but I think without sorting out the issue of Kirkuk or settling out the issue of Kirkuk, there will be no peace in Iraq and there will be no implementation of constitution. Otherwise, forget it, which means you have ready card for another conflict inside Iraq without sorting out the issue of Kirkuk. For me, I was thinking of sorting out the Kirkuk issue through Article 140, through legal framework for the safety and stability of all Iraqis, not just Kurds. Really. But they were thinking of playing with time, postponing things to a further stage to get it more complicated until 2017 happens. Even now, I'm thinking if we are not going to implement Article 140 for Kirkuk, we are paving the way for another conflict in the area.
And as we speak now, 2 days from now, and it will be about a month ago when this episode is released, but you will be taking part in a ceremony that recognizes the excavation of a number of more bodies from the Barzan area. Could you speak to me about that a little bit?
I think on Sunday we have 160 bodies back from the same area. And Sunday, we are going to rebury them at the same place in Barzan. This is another stage. My idea, we have to continue to bring all the bodies back from the south, from the mass graves. All, not just Barzanis, Anfals and everybody's. I think it's not fair to leave your bodies back. And if you are not valuing your dead body, it's not possible to value your alive son and daughters today. Because by their sacrifice we reach today, we have to appreciate them and bring them back. And it's going to help our reconciliation process as well in Iraq. At least we can make an end of this story. A guy whose dad's been missing for 30 years now, I cannot go and talk to him about Iraq and still he don't know where his dad's been buried or been killed. I think this is going to help our reconciliation inside the society again.
Generally, I wrap these interviews up by sort of asking a generic question about what needs to happen for the future. But with you, I actually want to ask sort of the inverse of that question. Why is recognizing this particular aspect of the past, this genocide, so important for Kurdish identity in your own view?
I think it's a genocide. Most of the people who were there, public mobilization based on nationality, they need to recognize their genocides. And this is not something happens and finished. We are living with it daily, really, because we are scared the same thing can happen tomorrow. And it happens in 2000. In 2007, by the way, we were celebrating the anniversary of Halabja. I had a speech. I said that the same genocide will happen again, the Kurds against in Sinjar. And it happens in 2014, really. Even today, if we are not implementing constitution, living together, and memorizing these things, it might be another genocide can happen against Kurds. Who say not? Why not? Because the machine who produced genocides exists. They are there. We take Saddam Hussein and his gangs to the court, but we never talk his mentality and it became worse after 2003, by the way. Then the marriage between Islamists and Baathists, the outcome with Qaeda and ISIS, which is worse than Baathist. Like you have a chocolate covered by poison. It's going to become more dangerous. Chocolate is bad for the guy who's diabetes. But if you cover it with poison, it's going to be disaster for all. It happens like that now. This is why I think if we are not memorizing it, if we are not, if we are going to forget it, the same thing can happen again.
Well, Dr. Ihsan, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much, too. Thank you.
I'd really like to thank Dr. Ihsan for stopping by to talk, and thanks to you for listening. Inside Kurdistan is brought to you by the Kurdistan Information Network, and you can check us out at kurdistanin.net. Be sure to subscribe to us on iTunes, Spotify, or your favorite podcast app. Thanks again. I'm Aaron Weintraub, and this has been Inside Kurdistan.